Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It is a Monday, the 25th of June. Hope everybody had a great weekend. My God, a absolutely spectacular day here. In fact, I'm going to just switch my starting point because I just want to bring up the northeastern satellite view here because, I'm sorry, the eastern satellite view. We have this dry, cool Canadian air. There's some wispy high clouds that are going by, but boy, what a beautiful day. Temperatures in the upper 70s to low 80s. Humidity levels were way down. And we've got 2 more days of this, which is great. I'm enjoying it because we're going to be transitioning over into a very hot and humid pattern at the end of this week. And I'm going to get into a few things regarding that because some of the one weather model in particular is really going off the wall as far as some of the temperatures are concerned. Let me also just want to address something. Is yesterday I did not go shark fishing with my my good friend Phil Buzz, who with his party landed a 293-pound thresher. And they won the shark tournament. This was off Fire Island, off the south shore of Long Island, about halfway out. Bayshore was where they went out from there. And it's about halfway out on the island, and they went out offshore. I think he said they went out well over 30 miles in order to get this. But I just want to make a point. With regards to this sort of thing. The shark tournaments that they have, at least in the state of New York, I don't know how it is in other states, but in the state of New York, the only way for the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, that regulates all the fishing that goes on, the only way that they can check the health of the population of the fish is by going out and catching them. So they actually work in conjunction with these shark tournaments, and when the participants, if they do bring a shark back after it's weighed, the first thing they do is the DEC and Fish and Wildlife. They take out the stomach, the heart, the intestines, and they look to see what is exactly in there, because sometimes sharks do wind up eating things besides the food to see if they're coming in contact with any kind of foreign substances. This is the way that they check on the health of the population, and they work with these shark tournaments, which are regulated. So, I know some animal rights groups will probably, not hear a word I just said. Frankly, I don't care. But I'm just making the point that this is not just like some sort of haphazard, let's go out 37 miles and catch a shark. Also, by the way, when the shark are brought back, they are cut up into steaks. The meat is given away for free to anyone that is there, and what is not taken is either by the captain of the ship or those of the boat or those who went out. Anything that is there goes to a number of the homeless shelters. So not a single thing is wasted here. All right. So I just want to make that point. I did a live stream from there yesterday after they brought the shark in, and it's on the video library if you haven't seen it. But I just wanted to put that out there. Okay. Now let's get on to the weather. All right, because we do have a little bit of activity going on tonight. With regards to severe weather, we do have a severe thunderstorm watch, or what's left of a severe thunderstorm watch, going on in parts of South Carolina and southern North Carolina. Also, parts of a tornado watch up for an area in Iowa, and you've got flood watches up there, some flash flood warnings. I believe the dark red there is the flash flood warning, and that is in and around in Missouri and on the Illinois side, right around St. Louis. So pretty busy there. And in fact, I'll bring up the Storm Prediction Center's map from today. from this evening, and that's the real-time radar. And by the way, as always, I just want to make, put this disclaimer out there. If you are watching this later this evening on the replay, be advised that we are at 2 minutes after 8 o'clock Eastern time. So these maps are obviously dated. If you live in these areas where there's risk for severe weather, be sure to go to weather.gov and check your local National Weather Service office for any of the latest watches or warnings. The blue is the severe thunderstorm watch that is up. The red is that small tornado watch. You can see that's all encased in two areas of slight risk, one affecting the southeastern part of the United States or the southern mid-Atlantic, and the other across the middle Mississippi Valley. So that pretty much covers it. There's also a small area of marginal risk in northern Montana. Obviously, here in the Northeast, it's bone dry, so there's no worries for showers and thunderstorms here, not just today, but also for tomorrow. Here's I'll give you the wide U.S. radar look so you can see a bit better when we take the SPC's map off the grid. And there's a considerable amount of activity going on in the southeastern quarter of the United States. Also some activity in parts of South Florida. And then you can see the severe weather that is potentially going to be breaking out in that tornado watch area that's up in parts of Iowa. You've got some bands of showers and a couple of thunderstorms in the mix there. Now, I want to show you, first off, I've been using this WPC map, which is basically, their forecast for the next 7 days. And one of the things that comes front and center on this is the fact that we're starting to see, at least from now going into next Monday, less in terms of rainfall than what we have seen recently in these 7-day forecasts. And the reason for that is clear, and that is that there's going to be a big ridge building in the eastern part of the United States. So the areas that have been subjected to this frontal boundary, mainly talking about the mid-Atlantic states in particular, that is going to disappear with this big ridge building. So the rainfall amounts, this is spread out, are probably going to be more along the lines of the pop-up variety, showers and thunderstorms. And actually, much of what you see is also going to be front-end loaded. In other words, it's going to come early into the forecast period, probably between now and Thursday evening, and less so in the second half of the forecast period, which would be, say, from Friday through the weekend and into next week. Of course, that'll depend on your location, but that is something to consider. Now, there is going to be a heat wave, and one of the things I want to bring up is the GFS temperature forecast, because everybody in the weather world is kind of going a bit crazy with this. And I have to tell you, there may be something here amiss with regards to the GFS itself and how it comes up with these printouts for temperatures. But what I have up here begins on Friday, and you'll notice that you've got 90s pushed up into Massachusetts through southern New England back to New York City, but it's basically lower 90s. It's not any big deal. Saturday, you start to see that expand, and actually there is a 100-degree printout there off in northeastern New Jersey, just west of Long Island. So it looks like the number is right over Staten Island. There's another 100-degree reading that it prints south of Philadelphia. I'm not sure what physical geographic location that's supposed to represent. And it's got 101 in around the D.C. area. And it only gets worse from there, because when we look at Sunday, and by the way, this is at 8 a.m. Sunday morning, where temperatures are already into the 80s. These are the 2 p.m. readings. By the way, these aren't the highs for the day. These are 2 p.m. readings. So you had Friday, Saturday. Now look at this for Sunday. It's got 105 just west of Boston, 103 in southeastern New Hampshire, mostly upper 90s across much of interior Maine, and then you've got these 104. What do I see here? 101. I can't read what the number is that's supposed to. I guess that's Poughkeepsie. It looks like that might be a 105. That might be Newark's representation. 102 for Philadelphia. Again, 101 for Washington. I kind of think these numbers are probably a bit too high at this point. These would be obviously record or near record highs for most of this area. I'm not saying, I'm not necessarily saying that you couldn't possibly see record highs in numbers like this, but I really kind of want to see how this whole thing sets up later this week. Right now, I would argue against those extremes. Maybe pull these numbers back by about 5 degrees. I mean, it'll still be every bit of mid to upper 90s in the hottest spots, but when you start to see these, big numbers like 103, 104, like we have for Monday, you got 104 west of Boston, 103 in southeastern New Hampshire. The one thing I will say is that a large part of New England and northeastern New York State has seen subnormal rainfall. It's unusually dry, so you wonder whether some areas are going to wind up seeing some some amounts that might lean toward the high end of the range rather than the low end of the range. The other takeaway from this, and this is Tuesday of next week, so we're talking some areas on Friday, just about everybody, everybody Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then even into the 4th of July. I mean, you have the potential here for some areas to get at least 3 days of 90 plus, and some areas will get 4 days of 90 plus, and some areas will get 5 days of 90 plus. And at least when you go further south, as you get into Thursday and Friday, GFS kind of hangs this front up, might even argue for a 6th day. I don't know. That's going to depend on a few things happening. But in the meantime, I'll bring up the upper air, and we'll go back to the beginning because I want you to watch the eastern part of the United States, because this is where we're getting this change in the upper air pattern in the eastern part of the United States. The last trough swinging offshore now, and then we've got this strong shortwave that is coming out of the plains and then running up through the Great Lakes. It opens up and moves on through here with some showers and thunderstorms for Thursday in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic. This is going to be the transition between the dry air mass, the dry, relatively cool air mass that we have now, and the hot, humid weather that's going to develop beginning on Friday and then getting into full swing over the weekend. Watch as we move through Friday on the upper air. Trough in the west, big ridge builds in the east. And in particular, it builds, the strongest part of that ridge is going to be over Pennsylvania, southern New York, New Jersey, southern New England, and down into Virginia. So you would think that this is where you probably would see some of the hottest temperatures. And that ridge on Sunday, when it pushes those big 100-degree numbers up into New England, big upper high, very strong upper high here, sitting, basically you could put the H right over New York City. And in the meantime, that trough in the west kind of flattens a little bit. Gradually that ridge weakens next week, but slowly. And you don't really get that. The northern part of the jet stream is going to try and come down somewhat, but it really is going to have a fight until maybe later in the period when the ridge suddenly shifts to the west. And at this point, you're going to start to see, more troughing off the New England coast. So this might bring maybe more important cooling, at least getting temperatures back down closer to average in the northeast and into the northern mid-Atlantic. You're also going to have a trough come off the west coast, but we're going to have to wait here. And whether that ridge comes back or not in the longer term remains to be seen. I think there's an argument to be made that the jet stream is going to eventually kind of collapse far enough south that we're going to start to see cold fronts move on through. So, but this is going to be a heat wave. I like the 5-day 90-plus definition versus the 3-day 90-plus. I just think it makes the concept of a heat wave a little cheap when you make it 3 days. I think there could, you could have 3 random days in a row, three all through the summer. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. You can have 3 days in a row of 90-degree readings occur a number of times over the course of the summer. 5 days makes it a bit more rare, and that's how they used to measure it. So you got to always ask the question when someone brings up the fact that if they say that, well, we're having more heat waves now than we did in the past. Well, are we talking 3-day heat waves? Are we talking 5-day heat waves? Are we comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, or is it apples to oranges? So that's an important thing to remember. The frontal boundary, by the way, to the south still remains pretty active Tuesday into Wednesday. Now here comes that system coming out of the plains and across the Great Lakes. And again, this is going to be the transition from dry and nice to hot and humid, and showers and thunderstorms probably moving through parts of the Northeast late Wednesday night and Thursday before it goes out, and then you start to get that big ridge building into the east. You notice, by the way, the amount of precipits decreases as we go through the weekend and into next week. The boundary zone of the ridge in the west is going to run up through the eastern part of the northern plains and through the upper Midwest. So this is where we probably could see some severe weather develop in time next weekend, this coming weekend. But in the east, with that big upper high sitting overhead, it's going to be hard for anything other than a pop-up thunderstorm to develop right through the weekend and into the first week of July. Now, there is a front that approaches for the 4th of July near the coast. Whether it comes through or not remains to be seen. It might hang around, so maybe on the 4th of July and the 5th of July, you're going to start to see some increasing chances for some showers and thunderstorms. But, right now, too far out in the future to really put a whole lot of faith into how that weather front is going to behave. Is it going to get hung up or not? I don't know. Now, I want to look at the tropical Pacific. The tropical Atlantic is pretty much quiet and should stay that way. In the meantime, we do have a couple of waves, actually 2 systems that the Hurricane Center is watching, forecasting them both to develop. The D storm, which I believe was Daniel. Let me just make sure. I'll pull up the Hurricane Center's map here. Yes, so the Daniel, which became a tropical storm over the weekend, is back down to a depression. And if we look at the 5-day outlook here, you can see that there are 2 areas of disturbed weather that the Hurricane Center is indicating. The one to the east is coming out of the southwestern Caribbean and crossing over as a tropical wave, and it doesn't really develop into anything until after it gets to the other side. Now, you've got a lead system that looks like it might form into something as it moves west-northwestward, and there's the second system later this week that comes out, and it looks like both of them could become hurricanes as they move west-northwest. Actually, the GFS has this fairly deep down in the upper 930s, and since we've already seen a couple of Category 4s, it wouldn't be a big shock. But this will, and look at that, it even gets it down to a 908. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I don't, when models do this sort of thing, you always have to wonder whether it's some kind of feedback that's going on. It did that a few times late last summer and fall, and in some cases it was right, and in other cases it wasn't. But these 2 hurricanes are going to be out to sea systems, and there's actually even one behind that in the long range. So looks like the Pacific remains relatively active. Actually, it looks like it's going to go into a very active mode here in the next week to 10 days, while on the Atlantic side, and I will bring up the I'll give you the North Atlantic view. Okay, where'd it go? So we can look at the whole Atlantic Ocean and see if it's doing anything. I'm starting this from the beginning. By the way, Levi Cowan, Tropical Tidbits, tropicaltidbits.com. These are the maps that he produces on his website. There's so much there. You really ought to go there if you are a weather buff or a weather geek or whatever phrase you want to put to it. Very strong Azores Bermuda high there, sitting out in the Atlantic. But as we go through time, we really don't see too much happening here. No sign, a couple of weak tropical waves, and that's just about it. The action doesn't really get going until they cross the southwest Caribbean and then come out the other side. And this is typical for late June, early July. There are really no surprises here, folks. Just bear that in mind if you're looking for tropical activity this time of year on the Atlantic side. Most years you wind up with relatively little until you get into late July or early August. And by the way, here's the Pacific satellite view tonight, and you can see what it was Tropical Storm Daniel, now a depression south and east of the Baja Peninsula, moving slowly northward or northwestward and degenerating. And you can also see the westernmost edge of the disturbed weather that is likely to develop into those next two tropical systems that are indicated by the GFS model. And by the way, with respect to the heat, the coming heat, the Canadian, the European, and the GFS all have the same idea. I just wonder whether the GFS is doing some sort of convective feedback. Well, I'm sorry, not convective feedback, but has some sort of something going on with regards to it showing those ridiculous high temperatures down the road. Again, I want to just kind of wait and see till we get until we get to later this week to see how that upper ridge sets up and what exactly are we going to be dealing with in terms of hot temperatures. And as Timothy Veltman pointed out earlier, we were chatting before the live stream started that usually when it gets this hot, fish don't like to bite. So you either got to go early in the morning or late, right around sunset to take advantage of that. Green Fire, Little Star Lord, Delvin on, James NASCAR, Charles Baker, Paul Sachs, Stephen Franco, Israel's here, Mirtha Gunter is here. Just a big hello. My buddy Phil Buzz, who went shark fishing, his sister just said the barbecue shark that she cooked was so delicious. Yeah, the thresher I had last year, Phil, was very good, and I brought some steaks home, and I think they were going to be made tonight, but I'm not 100% sure. Joe Miano's on here too, and that was quite the catch, by the way. And congrats, because you won the tournament too, and that's a good thing. Ryan Ford, the GFS has been very consistent with these readings. Have other models had their level of consistency? Yeah, Ryan Ford, they have, and they've been mostly in middle 90s. In fact, the GFS MOS, the model output statistics, which are the actual numerical data based on the models, are about 10 degrees lower than what those maps are showing. They're basically showing low to middle 90s, which kind of makes more sense, with respect to the high temperatures. I was, if I saw the MOS today come in with the same kind of numbers that the maps were showing, that would be one thing. But, the MOS numbers are 5 to 7 degrees lower, pretty consistent. So let's see where they go as we go through this week. And Green Fire, we're going to need some cold fronts and rain after this, no doubt about that. Absolutely. I don't remember Israel. The lowest pressure on record, I believe, is Typhoon Tip. I know if Anthony Orr's here, he'd know it right off the top of his head. I'm going to say Typhoon Tip, and I think that was 875 millibars out in the West Pacific. But I got to double check that. I used to be so good with these stats, and I'm just not anymore. Can I show you the MOS and how to read them? I'll tell you what. I will give you the MOS. All right. You know what? I got a couple of minutes. Let's see if I can bring them up. This MOS. And okay, so I'll let me bring up. I'll put the website in the chat for those of you who are interested, and you could just Google GFS MOS, 2 words, and you can take a look for yourself. But let me bring it up. Okay, so we'll bring this. Let's go to GFS Moss. All right, so when you go to the page of the GFS Moss, or and this is another testament to how wonderful the National Weather Service is. Okay, so you're going to click on your map, and I will do that here, and I'm going to bring up New Jersey, and I will bring Newark front and center. Okay, and so you can see the numbers here. So the top line is the max min. Okay, so your high and your low, and you're going to start with obviously you can see the dates. The forecast time frame is 24 hours, 36, 48, 60, 72, and so on. So you've got your days lined up there: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, into Tuesday morning. So for example, Tuesday, the GFS is forecasting 78 for a high, 65 for a low Wednesday morning, then 79 for Wednesday high, 68 for Thursday morning, 86 for a high, this is for Newark, then 71, and then we have the highs for Friday, Newark, 94, Saturday 95, Sunday 96, Monday 94. So you can see it's not at all like what the maps are showing. And if you look, by the way, if you look, you can scroll down the whole state. There's all different stations here that you can look at. We can actually, I'm going to, while we have it, since it was printing big numbers for New England, why don't we take a look at the Moss numbers. Okay, why is it not giving it to me? There's New York. All right, so here's New Hampshire. So here's Concord. And now for Concord, it does get to 99 on Sunday. Okay, so it's got 92 Friday, 91 Saturday, 99 for Sunday, 96 for Monday. Rochester, 88, 89, 92, 94. So you can just click on the map there, and you could pull up, any state you like. And I did put the link, as I said. But if the link's not working, just go to just Google GFS and your second word MOS, Moss, MOS, and you'll be able to bring those up front and center. And by the way, there's a short-term view of that too. There's both. That's the long range. That's the GFS extended. And okay, let me bring me back to the top here. That's the GFS extended. There's another option there too. If you just want to look at, say, the next 60 hours, you could just bring up the GFS, the other option, which will give you the short range. Keith James, the barometric pressure measured in Wilma was 882, is currently the lowest recorded pressure for the tropical cyclone in the Atlantic Basin. Thank you very much. That is correct. 882 for Wilma, and it did not come on land, by the way, with that pressure. It had filled before landfall. Delvin, you were watching Andrew. I'd get his voice back because Andrew had the same problem I had. Nicole Sweet, any good weather in Trinidad? You hate the African dust. It doesn't look like the tropics are going to be especially active for you in the next week to 10 days. So outside of the usual daytime shower or thunderstorm nonsense, I think you should be okay. Andrew's going to go live at 3 tomorrow. I hope he got his voice back. I'm going to go check his stream in just a little bit. Is Moss on the NWS web? Well, it's on there. It's on. Google it separately. GFS Moss. I don't know. That's where I know where it is. I don't know if they have a link someplace else. But yeah, you should be able to find it fairly easily. Lowest barometric pressure ever recorded onshore anywhere in the North American continent. I am going to say Hurricane Camille, 1969, 905 millibars. Anthony Orr, can you verify that for me? Lowest pressure recorded by a landfalling hurricane Oh, actually, I'm going to correct it right off the bat because I believe you want to count the Florida Keys hurricane in 1935, the Labor Day storm. I think that pressure was 892. Okay, but in terms of the, if you want to X out the Florida Keys, I think Camille would be 905. But I'm sure Anthony will be able to come up with the absolute correct answer. But I'm pretty sure I'm close with this. All right, folks, time for me to go. The Joe and Joe Show tonight at, I believe, 9:15 on Facebook channel, meteorologist Joe Cioffi, or on Joe Rayo's Facebook page. We will call it Joe Rayo Weather. And you can watch us on either one. If you're not on Facebook, just be patient, and I will upload the show onto the YouTube video library, and you could watch it later on this evening or overnight or during tomorrow. And just as always a reminder, we are a participant in the Amazon Services Associates program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon and its affiliated sites. The link is on the description of this live stream or on the video descriptor if you watch this later. And if you choose to shop through that link, you get your stuff. Amazon throws me back some coin, and everybody's happy. And I really, really appreciate. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much that you guys support my channel the way you do. And trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you guys. No. So we're going to call it a quits here on this Monday. Have a great evening. We will see you tomorrow.